Oh, hello. Welcome to being interviewed. I guess I don't really know what I welcomed you to, but let's start off by asking who you are. Who are you? What do you do for trail?
My name's Saad Durrani. I'm going into my third year as a mechanical engineering student at UT, and I am the director of safety at Trell. So basically, what that means is I overview all the safety engineering and proofing designs and ensuring our test procedures are keeping the safety of our personnel in mind at all times and just ensuring overall personnel safety in all our operations.
That's seems like a fun job. Let's talk about like why you were interested in space and rocketry. What led you here? Have you always been into it, or it's something recent that happened?
I grew up very close to NASA Johnson Space Center in Houston, and I've been surrounded by space and NASA like growing up, and that's kind of what instilled a passion and just a fascination with space for me as I was growing up. A bunch of my friends, their parents were engineers at NASA, some were astronauts, some worked in mission control, and just hearing about it kind of that's what interested me in it. And then also like I was just one of those kids that just like, breaking things and not so successfully putting them back together. So I thought maybe engineering might be the route for me. And so that's why I got pretty interested in space. And really, that's what's been driving me to pursue opportunities in that industry.
Right. I always hear that people, a good engineer when they start destroying stuff when they're young and then rebuilding
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, let's ask, have you ever been to a rocket launch? You ever seen, ever been to a SpaceX or NASA one? Which one do you prefer anyways?
I haven't been to one physically. I've watched a couple online. I would say my favorite was I watched a couple of the space shuttle launches, especially some of the last ones as I was growing up when I was younger. Those were just super exciting to me. I just loved watching them on the TV, and I'd say those were my favorite. And of course, the recent Demo 2 launch by SpaceX, that was also very cool.
Oh, well, you don't like the heavy launch? Ever seen that one?
Yeah, I saw that Falcon Heavy launch.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I'm more interested in just the human aspect of space
Uh,
exploration. Just like seeing people go up physically, that kind of like intrigues me a little more.
Alright, that's cool. Yeah. So what is an interesting story from your time here at Trell then? You must have some. You've been here a little while.
I'd say one of my more interesting stories would be our first weather balloon launch. This is back when I was on the test and launch operations team. That's the team I was on before I became director of safety. Basically, it was our first weather balloon launch. We had built the payload and we launched it, and we had uh, tracking data on it to try and track it and figure out where to find it. And we lost tracking for a bit, and then we got a ping in like a middle of a field a couple hours outside of Austin. So we went to that field and we started looking, and it ended up being like an absolute like hiking expedition almost once we got there, because like yes, there was like some farmers fields, but then in the back, me and one of the other members, Ryan Cole, we were just climbing through this wooded area, and like we weren't prepared at all for such like getting through all this muddy foresty type deal. Then like we checked our phones again, and the balloon pinged again like several miles away, so we weren't even looking in the right area. I don't know, it was just a fun thing. It was ended up being a fun day, just looking for a balloon in like just the vast wilderness of Texas.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
That's a little interesting story there. What is one fact about rocketry and the business about Trell that people often get wrong? A lot of people watch this and think it's pretty cool, but they don't really understand the inner workings. I mean, obviously, you had that story of you hiking for like hours.
I'd say one thing people often overlook is how basically anybody can be involved in rocketry and the space. Like Trell itself, we have people from all majors, all backgrounds, and you know, the saying, it's not rocket science. Like that's usually like saying like it implies that rocket science is like the most difficult you can get, but really like there's all sorts of ways to get involved, and I think that it's very feasible for anyone, no matter what their skill level, to try and pursue their passion in rocketry. And it's not as hard as you think once you start walking through it slowly and trying to teach yourself and take the initiative to learn on your
Right, yeah, I agree with that as well. Look where I am.
own. Yeah.
So, obviously, do you want to be an astronaut one day? You said you love the human aspect, so I can imagine you would.
hmm Well, although it would be fascinating and it was a childhood dream of mine, as I've learned more about NASA through internships and like friends whose parents work in mission control, I don't know if I'd necessarily want to be an astronaut.
Really?
Um, they seem to have almost every minute of their day scheduled by someone else,
Mm,
and a lot of the tests that they do up there, like they're not always in the know as to like what the purpose of said test is. Like someone on the ground was the one that decided like this test needs to happen in space, and so I think for me, I would enjoy a lot more of the ops side, something along the lines of mission control or sending up things for them to do, for just furthering knowledge in space and just helping advance the field overall.
so you'd prefer a lot more freedom in your job, it seems.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe. So you told us about the astronaut. So obviously that was a good piece of advice. But what piece of advice would you give to incoming freshmen if they're unsure if they want to pursue, the science part of the rocketry or the business part of rocketry?
Well, um, like I said, like absolutely anybody can be involved with rocketry, right? Like it's a business at the end of the day. You have every type of team from engineering to business to PR to outreach and all sorts of different aspects of it. And really, I think what it is you should find your passion. If it happens to be in rocketry, then find what you love to do. So whether it be science, technology, engineering, mathematics, or whether it be running the business side, closing deals, or whether it be just talking to people and being an outreach individual. Just figure out how you can bring the most to the table in the rocket industry, and I'm sure there'll be many opportunities for you
Yeah, I agree as well. What are you seeing, down the road? What are your future career goals looking like? I know everything's a bit like kind of wild right now, but it's, nobody expected it. But it's like I said before, the space industry is known for delays. It's in the
there.
name. So what do you see down the road?
For myself personally, I do plan to go into industry after college, although I am considering maybe getting a master's in, you know, something. I'm not sure just yet. It's still kind of up in the air, but ideally, I'd like to go into the space industry after college. My, goal dream companies would be those along the lines of SpaceX, Blue Origin. I like the companies that happen to be leading everything right now, what you can see in the forefront of space and technology. So it's still up in the air, like I said, but space definitely.
You ever think about trying to start a space company? That seems a little hard.
I have. It seems doable though. Like
Does it really?
it seems like something that is more in demand recently, although it does require a lot of footwork in the beginning. I think I would like to run my own business someday, and I would not be opposed to the idea of running a space company.
Right. Yeah. So speaking in terms of that, are there any internships you've had already that are interesting? If you've had any at all?
Yeah, so currently I'm interning at NASA Johnson Space Center in their electronic systems test lab, where we work on the communications side of spacecraft and just a bunch of testing and development for those spacecraft communication systems. This is my second time interning there. I interned there 2 years ago, summer before my freshman year, and now this year. Although remote, I'm doing a lot of cool things for them. This year, my main project is to implement 4G LTE in space and for future lunar missions. I'm basically studying the effect of terrestrial, cell towers and the 4G LTE that we use and trying to understand whether or not it will affect 4G LTE being used in near Earth orbit, such as on the ISS. So I've built, actually, it's just sitting on my desk. This is a weather balloon payload which will record the signal strength of 4G LTE as a function of altitude as the weather balloon goes higher and closer to space, so that we can see whether or not there's like a significant amount of interference we'd have to account for.
That's actually really cool.
Thank you.
That's something that's something you didn't expect. That's cool. Even to do it on internships, because whenever I assume internships, I think of just getting somebody coffee.
Yeah.
But in terms of more of our team, we really are like a family. We pride ourselves in sort of working together.
Mhm.
How important is the communication like we have to an aerospace engineer?
So you mean like communication just amongst trial members in
Yeah,
general?
because we're trying to build a rocket, and it
Yeah.
definitely needs some communication, or it might get a little
Yeah.
dangerous pretty quickly.
Communication is, I think, the most important thing any organization can have, um, especially for rocketry, because we have all our different sub teams. We have fluid structures, test and launch operations, and they're all working towards this main goal. But at the end of the day, you have to remember, like if you're working on fluids, you have to remember, like, hey, there's going to be some AVGNC stuff going through here. You have to remember there's going to be all sorts of other subsystems working alongside me. And it's important to continuously communicate what you're designing, what you're working on, and how it might implicate and affect other sub teams. Also, communication is also important from leadership and to the rest of the organization, trying to ensure that everyone has the same information, understands our goals, and this is in the know of where Trell is as an organization and how we're moving forward.
Especially during the COVID times, definitely very important.
Yeah, very
So,
true.
back to the astronaut stuff. I know what is your favorite astronaut? If you have one.
I would have to say it would be Johnny Kim. He is part of the most recent astronaut class. I think the first Artemis generation astronaut class. And I actually had the opportunity to attend a lecture with him the day before yesterday.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, he's a very cool guy. He was a Navy SEAL, and then he went to Harvard Med School. And then right after he graduated Harvard Med, he applied to be an astronaut and became an astronaut. So he has
That's
had quite the resume. And although he hasn't flown up in space, his story just inspires me with how diverse of an experience he has. He was also a mathematician at one point too, and just like how many different things he's done and just his core values. And listening to him speak about his life the other day was truly, a very good experience. And I was very thankful and learned a lot from it. And I highly recommend people look into him because he has quite the inspiring story.
I definitely will. For the people who don't know, Artemis is the next Mars mission. Just to get that out of the way,
Mhm.
pretty exciting stuff. Yeah, I'll definitely check them out. In terms of that, you talked about wanting to join a space and aerospace company as well. What do you think your favorite aerospace company is?
I'd have to say SpaceX would be my favorite just because I feel like they truly inspired all these other private aerospace companies and just showed the world how aerospace can be a private industry and how they can just plow through development and get stuff done basically like very quickly. Like in comparison, if you look at SpaceX's progress and how they organize things versus a government agency, SpaceX is able to move a lot quicker and push limits to try and def- create innovation within the industry. So I'd say that's why they're probably my favorite as of current.
Right. Yeah. For our team here, how has that impacted your college experience? It's been really good. Has it been something you didn't expect to be in, or just tell me about it.
Yeah, so I honestly would not have expected to be in an organization like Trell ever, until like I saw them recruiting. I joined spring of 2019, so it's been about a year and a half since I've been in Trell. But it's really interesting to be receiving basically industry level experience while I'm in college. I'm learning a lot. I'm being forced to, go outside of the breadth of my classes and learn stuff on my own, do my own research. And it has truly been like an amazing experience. I've met some truly very cool, very smart people. And so far, I've had, the best time in Trell.
That's definitely one of those once in a lifetimes. Let's talk about recent stuff. What has quarantine looked like for you? This is a different time. Definitely something also people wouldn't expect.
Yeah, definitely. Blessed to say my quarantine has, not been too bad. I have been at home in Houston. I came home right after spring break when UT moved all its classes online, and been chilling here since. I, grinded through the last month or so of classes, and now I'm basically just interning at home. I have my full setup thanks to NASA over here, and just spending a lot of time with family, getting a lot of time to work on like small projects here and there that I've always wanted to do but never had time for before. So it's been nice, not too bad.
So, in terms of those projects, what are good activities you recommend for others, who don't really know what to do at this time?
I've picked up a lot of personal skills, I guess. I learned Python um, just because my project at NASA needed it, and I'd always wanted to learn it. So I spent some time doing that. Fixed up things at the house. I was just putting off. What else I do? I've started reading a little bit more. I've also gotten more into personal finance, personal investing. Just I guess building upon my own skills, trying to make the most of my time and not just lull around. Okay.
What is your favorite class you've taken in aerospace? Everybody has their favorite class. I'm curious about yours.
That's a difficult question. I'm, mechanical engineering, of course, and my favorite class thus far would have to be engineering dynamics. I think it's the class I saw the most application towards real world technologies, and just real world applications because, dynamics, it's basically the study of physics in movement, basically in comparison to like statics or solids. It was just interesting because, well, one, I studied abroad when I was taking that
Uh,
course. So that obviously was a big pull factor as to why it's my favorite. But then also my professor, Dr. Connolly, he was awesome at connecting things we were learning to things we've seen in real life and just pointing out like, hey, you see this on your everyday like commute to school. This is why that's happening. And so it was just very interesting to see how stuff works.
where did you study abroad at?
It was partly in Toulouse, France, and partly in Barcelona, Spain.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I definitely maybe would have wanted to study abroad, but I guess not now.
Well, I highly recommend if you do get the opportunity.
Uh, Last question here. Let's go one. What advice do you have for aspiring engineers?
Yeah, so I'd say if you want to pursue engineering in general, um, start, learning about obviously science and maths as much as you can, and start, just fiddling around with things. Start, just trying to pursue your own engineering projects at home and try to figure out like what it is that makes you truly passionate about engineering. What sector is it? Is it electrical? Is it mechanical, aerospace, petroleum? Like figure out what gets you out of bed. If you know you want to do engineering, then that's your next step. Figure out what gets you out of bed and then pursue that passion. There's so many avenues you can go down in engineering. Really, the opportunities are limitless. So just take your time and try to get to know yourself, and that will eventually help you succeed in the field.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having
Stick
me.
around.